Hello and welcome to Uncommon Law, my podcast about true stories from my life experience of over 50 years as a lawyer and trial judge. This is a look at the law from the inside out, stuff they don't teach in law school. This is Judge Rudy Greco, retired Justice of the New York State Supreme Court. Bureaucracy can be like a locked door, hard to open because you don't have the key. Sometimes the key is found in boilerplate in the form of a simple printed paper form. And I got this case, and when I think back on my start in the law, I had a very, very good start because I was in the hands of wonderful people, good lawyers, upstanding people who were very, very encouraging and get me off to a very, very, very good start on the right leg. One former boss was a woman called Geraldine T. Iber, and she called me up asking for a favor. And Jerry Iber I clerked under her supervision in the law office for a year and a half, and she was like another mother to me. She was just fabulous, and she was a very prominent criminal lawyer who rose to become a Supreme Court criminal court judge, a Supreme Court judge, and then even the first woman appointed to the New York State Appellate Division of the Supreme Court, which is the second highest court in the state. She was special. Well, she says, Rudy, she called, I need a favor. I said, well, you got the favor. Just tell me what it is, and I'll do it. She said, okay. You know, my old Irish cleaning lady, which I knew, she said, well, her son, John, is being arraigned across the street from your office right now. They're holding him for arraignment. I don't know what the charges are exactly, but there's no money. They have no money. She has no money for a fee. And this guy is not well, and I'd like you to take the case. Well, I did. There was no question I was going to do it because this was just carrying on the tradition that she had established and that I was very, very familiar with. She was always a person of goodwill, and I wasn't going to let her down. They never let me down. So I was passed, the baton was passed to me, and I wasn't going to hesitate. I go across the street, and I simply put in my notice of appearance, which registers me as this guy's attorney. And the clerk hands me a complaint in exchange. I didn't read the complaint. And I walked right back to the holding pen. By the way, before that, I just saw the mother, and I reassured her I was there, and Judge Iber sent me, and I would be taking care of matters. So just hang tight, and let's see what happens. Well, the holding pen is behind the courtroom. It's a jail cell where they hold prisoners awaiting their court appearance under under lock and key, and there are correction officers in there which administer the place. Well, there were about 20 guys in the holding pen when I walked back there, which was normal. But what wasn't normal was 19 of them were on the far side of the holding pen, and one guy was all by himself on the other side. I call out and ask for the name of my client, John, and sure enough, he's the one guy. And these other guys on the other side are giving him a lot of room. I said, uh-oh, this is a problem here. Well, I met him, and he was very, very apprehensive. And I said, I'm your lawyer, John. Your mom is outside. I'm going to represent you. I'm going to put in a plea of not guilty. And mom's in the courtroom, and we're going to take care of everything. Settle down. He goes, yes, and I'm innocent. I'm innocent. I thought, that's what they always say. I said, well, okay, just settle down, and we'll see what happens and see what we can do. Maybe we can get you out of here today. So they'll call your case in a little while. And you don't have to say anything. You just go outside and stay still. And you can take a look, and you'll see Mom in the audience there. And you could just nod your head to her to show that you recognize that she's there. Okay. Well, I walk out. I go back into the courtroom, and I talk to the bridgeman. The bridgeman is a court officer who's the liaison between the lawyers and the judge on the bench. And I tell the bridgeman, you can call my case. I'm ready. Now, I haven't read the complaint. And the ADA, when he hears that I'm going to take this case, the assistant district attorney that's in that part said, Counselor, I'm going to tell you, I'm going to ask for no bail here. I said, no bail? That's pretty extreme. He said, well, this is an unusual case. He said, and I'm going to ask for no bail. Usually, the district attorneys ask the judge to impose an exorbitant and an exaggerated bail number, and then the judge would give him a little less. And everybody's pretty much satisfied. But While I was waiting for the case to be called, I thought maybe I better look at the complaint and read it. Bad news. John was accused of assault, but the assault was in the nature of 3 instances of child molestation. I said, oh no, this is no good. The last thing I wanted to do was represent a child molester, and it's a difficult uphill, very steep uphill battle in a courtroom when you're defending a child molester. So they called him out, called our case, and I made a motion immediately for a 30-day observation in the custody of the mental health commissioner rather than send him to jail. The DA went along, and the judge granted my motion, and John was remitted to the custody of the commissioner of mental health, which means he was going to be observed for 30 days, and then we'd have another court appearance and find out what was going on at that point in time. In the following weeks, I'm looking for a solution to this thing, and I called up my old boss, Judge Iber, and I said, listen, I need some help here. I need some advice. She said, okay. She said, I understand. She says, this is difficult stuff, and I thank you again for taking this on, and you make me proud. I said, well, all well and good, but I'm going to need help. She said, okay, you call this number. This is a doctor. He's a psychiatrist. He's an old friend of mine. I've been practicing for years. I know him for years. He's a sympathetic guy. He's a good person, and you tell him what the situation is, and he'll help. I promise you. I'll call him up and tell him, that you're going to call. I said, fine. Sure enough, I did. And he started working on it and looking into the case. Well, criminal law is a funny thing. Sometimes it can be deceptively simple. Criminal law, I used to liken it to looking at things in shallow water. You look and you see and you think those things are in a certain place and you know what you're looking at, but it's actually distorted. And criminal law, you have to keep looking at the complaint and the facts over and over and over sometimes to understand what's actually really happening here. And I had to keep doing that with John. Next visit, after 30 days, I go into the holding pen, and sure enough, it's the same. It's a different bunch of people, but it's the same distribution of people. 19 people are on one side of the pen and one on the other side, and that one by himself with plenty of air is my client, John. They're giving him a wide berth, and it's really funny in a way because the other 19 looked like Captain Kidd's cutthroat pirate crew, but they were smart enough to keep away from him. Well, I spoke to him. He was scared, and he said, counselor, he said, Mr. Greco, he said, keep me away from Detective Maloney, who was a big Irish guy, was one of the arresting officers. Keep me away from whatever you do. Keep me away from Detective Maloney. He's an agent of Steve Gallant, who runs an intergalactic conspiracy composed of communists and the mafia and other undesirables, and they're trying to snuff out all the good people, including me, in this world. So keep me away from him because he's with them, and it's a plot to get all the good people, and I'm next on the list. I said, don't worry, Detective Maloney is going to have nothing to do with you. You're not going to be in his company at all, okay? So relax. I'm going to go outside, and we're going to talk to the judge and see what's going on. Well, I go out and I speak to the judge, and now I have the friendly psychiatrist. He wrote up a report. The state doctors wrote up a report, and they agreed. John is a paranoid schizophrenic, and it's pretty severe. I did speak to Detective Maloney and the assistant district attorney, including his boss, the bureau chief, who had to okay any agreement that we might make. And apparently, Detective Maloney gave me the details. He said he had approached near a school in Queens 3 young boys, but thankfully he did them no harm. He never even touched them. When the kids became alarmed, they walked away or ran away, and John was there just when they caught him. He was like a deer in the headlights. But again, thankfully he didn't do any real harm, which made things a little bit easier. And the bureau chief said, when I proposed getting him into the custody of the mental health commissioner rather than going to jail, he said, well, you have to get a private facility. If you get a private facility to consent to take him under the new law, I'll do it, but not a public, because the state had a policy not to put criminally charged people into public hospitals. They were trying to empty out the mental hospitals, which is why even to this day we're suffering from that policy where all the mental health people are on the subway and roaming the streets rather than being properly treated. And that's national. It's not just New York. So he said, if you get a private hospital, that's okay. Well, that good doctor got me a private hospital. He got his hospital that he was affiliated with, a mental hospital, to take John into custody. And basically, it was in a form of a scholarship. He got a scholarship to the mental hospital. They would take him, which was a big deal because the state wouldn't take him and he would have to go to jail where he didn't belong. All right, he belonged in a mental hospital. Well, now all I had to do was get the judge to sign the form or to agree. This judge wouldn't agree because in 25 years on the bench, he had never given anything but a temporary order of observation for 90 days rather than this permanent order, which was a new twist in the law. And he didn't know about it, and he was uncomfortable, and he didn't want to be the first. And I got into an exchange with the judge where I started losing my temper. I even got to the point I said, Judge, this is not Joe Franklin's nostalgia hour on television here. We're not here about nostalgia. This is the law. Well, I'm not doing it. I said, okay, I want, just put this case over for a second call. I'll be back in a few minutes. Okay, he said, you go ahead, but I'm not signing this thing. So I got a brainstorm. I went down the hall to the chief clerk's office, and I explained my situation, and he took pity on me. He said, okay. I said, have you got a form? He says, yeah, I do. He says, I have the form, the remittance form for a permanent order of observation. He says, this is all brand new. I says, I know, and the judge won't sign. He says, well, I understand. He says, I'll come down to the courtroom with you. And that was really, really nice. He came down, spoke to the judge, handed him the form. And when the judge saw the form, his ass was covered. And all of a sudden he changed and he said, oh, this is okay, except that wasn't the end of the story. Now the judge is ready to go along, and I had to speak and get the final consent of the bureau chief, the assistant district attorney, who previously agreed. Now he said he never gave his consent. Now I'm in his office with Detective Maloney, no less, and also his partner, another detective. And I got so angry at the bureau chief, I said, you're lying. He said, well, I never gave my consent. I said, that's a lie. You gave your consent just a couple of weeks ago. You gave your consent if I got a private hospital. No, I didn't. And he denied it. I picked up a chair. I says, I'm going to break this chair right over your goddamn head. You understand? You're a damn liar. And the detectives were smiling and laughing because there's two lawyers going to kill each other. You know, they didn't mind. It was good entertainment. Now, the guy, when he sees the chair, he backs off. And he tries to portray this whole thing. I was only kidding with you. It was just a joke. I was just testing you out. Well, it wasn't a joke. But I didn't care because he changed. And he said, okay, here's my consent. And he signed off. That was it. I went back to the pens to speak to John. And John was really, really wound up at this point in time. He was especially wound up. He was always wound up, but this was really exceptional. And he said, Mr. Greco, I'll go. Keep me away from Detective Maloney. No matter what you do, I'll go to France. I'll go to Spain. I'll go to Germany. I'll go to Italy. I'll go to England. I'll go anywhere. Just keep me away from Detective Maloney. I said, John, you come out. The case is going to end. Detective Maloney is not here. All right? No problem. You're going to go to a hospital where you're going to be treated. You're not going to jail. They're going to treat you, take care of you, and make you better. You go look at your mom. She agrees. She's in the audience. She'll nod her head to you, yes, to say go along with this when the judge asks you, okay? And it's not going to be a problem. Okay. He was a little tentative, but he accepted it, and I calmed him down. On the way out of the pens, I passed an old Irish correction officer who was guarding the door to the courtroom. And he pulls me over, motions for me to come over, and I come close to him, and he whispers, oh, be Jesus, counsel. He said, whatever you do, don't send them to Ireland. They got enough troubles. You understand? I says, no, don't worry about it. I promise he's not going to Ireland. John's traveling days are over. Thanks for listening. Come back next week for another episode of Uncommon Law, lessons they don't teach in law school. I'm Judge Rudy Greco. Court is adjourned.